Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News on India's Voice to the World. I'm Siddharth Bharadwaj. Coming up in the next hour, India will host Russian President Vladimir Putin for bilateral summit with Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Special and privileged strategic partnership between two nations set to get a huge boost. Hectic diplomacy continues over Ukraine peace plan. Trump envoy to meet Ukraine negotiator in Miami. Kremlin says work on Ukraine proposals going on. U.S. military activity surges in Puerto Rico even as Venezuelan President Maduro confirms call with Trump, terms the talks respectful and cordial. And in the second ODI, Virat Kohli and Ruturaj Gaikwad's stun failed to deter South Africa's Proteas, successfully chased record total of 358 runs to level 3-match series 1-1. Russian President Vladimir Putin will arrive in India on Thursday for a high-stakes two-day state visit, his first since 2021. He will join Prime Minister Narendra Modi for the 23rd India-Russia Annual Summit, aimed at taking the bilateral partnership to a qualitatively new level. Ahead of the visit, security has been tightened across the capital for this pivotal summit. DD India's Rabindra Chauhan has the details.
Two-day state visit to India, Russian President Vladimir Putin said on Wednesday that Moscow aims to elevate cooperation with India to a qualitatively new level with deeper economic engagement.
We aim to elevate cooperation with the People's Republic of China and the Republic of India to a qualitatively new level by strengthening its technological component. We have numerous joint projects in energy, industry, space, agriculture and other sectors. We will also discuss these topics in detail during the upcoming visit to India with Prime Minister Narendra Modi, including increasing imports of Indian goods to our market.
Cooperation between India and Russia spans various key sectors like defense, trade, energy, nuclear energy, space, science and technology, culture and education. The two-day visit will include bilateral talks and a business forum focused on trade, energy, defense, space and agriculture.
This is the 23rd summit. That means both the sides at every level have invested a great deal of political capital in taking it forward. I still remember that when he had come here in December 2021, at that time, the conflict had not started, but the tensions around Ukraine were going on. And Mr. Putin was on Indian soil for barely 4 hours. But still, he invested that much of time, effort, energy to come, basically to send out a message that this relationship is very important for Russia.
India and Russia share a long-standing trusted partnership elevated to a special and privileged strategic partnership in 2010. This year's summit will review the full range of bilateral cooperation. Defense ties remain an important area in the bilateral relations, with joint R&D and cooperation under Make in India. Both sides also coordinate closely on multilateral forums like the UN, G20, BRICS and SCO. India advocates reform in the SCO, including designating English as an official working language, while SCO regional anti-terrorist structure continues to be crucial in counter-terrorism cooperation. Government-to-government ties remain strong with frequent leader-level meetings and phone calls. Regular ministerial visits reflect sustained momentum in bilateral relations. Putin's visit is being viewed positively across party lines in India, with opposition leaders also welcoming it with optimism. Congress leader Shashi Tharoor said the visit is extremely important.
We talked for a long time about strategic autonomy. We have to preserve our negotiating space. For us, we cannot mortgage our autonomy to any other country's interests. We have to have independent relationships with all these countries. And Russia is an old relationship, it's a serious relationship, it's a strong relationship, and one where obviously we have very many fundamental interests at stake. So I think we will have to see this relationship, how it moves after this visit, but it's a very important visit for our country.
The enthusiasm of President Putin's visit to India is also visible on the artistic landscape. An artist in New Delhi has prepared a portrait of President Putin alongside images of India's present and past prime ministers, symbolic of a strong and enduring friendship between the two countries. Ahead of the high-profile visit, security agencies are on high alert with an extensive security grid deployed across the national capital, covering all routes and engagements. Bureau Report, DD India.
India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh and his Russian counterpart Andrei Belousov will review the full spectrum of bilateral defence ties, including military and military technical cooperation. Both the leaders will co-chair the 22nd India-Russia Intergovernmental Commission on Military and Military Technical Cooperation in New Delhi. The two ministers will also exchange views on contemporary regional and global issues of mutual interest. A two-day India-Russia Business Forum is slated to kick off in the national capital on December 4 and 5, coinciding with Russian President Vladimir Putin's visit to India. On the first day of the forum, India's Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal, along with Deputy Chief of Staff of the Presidential Executive Office of the Russian Federation, Maxim Orishkin, will participate in the forum. The forum will explore various areas of Russian-Indian cooperation, including expanding Indian engineering products in Russia, increasing Russia's purchases of Indian food products, pharmaceutical goods, and collaboration in digital services, as the two countries eye to boost their bilateral trade target by 2030. All right, and DD India's Amrit Pal Singh joins us live on the story. Hi Amrit, a very good morning to you. Amrit, Russian President Vladimir Putin is set to arrive today in India for the 23rd India-Russia Annual Summit. He's coming here after 2021. What's on the agenda?
The entire gamut of bilateral relationship, Siddharth, ranging from defense to energy security, cooperation, joint production, trade, business, health, agriculture, reviewing the relationship where it stands today, how to take it further, boosting trade, people-to-people contacts, cultural ties, cooperation in sectors of digital space, labor mobility, space, civil nuclear energy. So everything is on the table, including discussions on global issues and the ongoing conflict between Ukraine and Russia and the way forward and the way out of it to ensure peace in the world and also restoration of global supply chains. So the entire gamut of bilateral relationship and the international implications and the international situation is on the agenda. Siddharth?
Okay, Amrit, and how do you analyze the bilateral ties between both the countries?
Oh, they're very strong bilateral ties. As your report mentioned, it's a time-tested relationship. It goes back to the Soviet era. There are people-to-people contacts. There are cultural contacts between the two sides. It's a deep-seated relationship. It's a special, privileged strategic partnership ranging from, as I said, all sectors. There is a good trade between the two sides. There are ambitions to scale it up to about $100 billion by 2030, which shall be extensively discussed tomorrow at the Hyderabad House, even at the Business Forum. Not just government-to-government relationship, but also business-to-business relationship will be discussed at the Business Forum. There is a military angle to it. The two defense ministers are meeting. There is joint production. BrahMos is a good example. Civil nuclear energy, Kodamkulam. Russia could offer more modular reactors. Oil is an important part of it. Of the relationship. Labor mobility with India's big talent force is on the table. So it is a robust relationship, Siddharth.
Definitely. Amrit, what can you tell us about India's strategic autonomy?
Okay, if you look at it, look at President Putin's visit. It comes at a time when Russia is facing isolation in the world, especially from the West,
Right.
namely the United States and EU. You know what three ambassadors of Western countries wrote an article a few days ago, which many in the Indian strategic community found objectionable and reacted sharply to it. For President Putin, the signaling to the West is that you are not the only countries in the world. If you don't look at me or want to pressurize me, I have others to engage with, including China, India being the third largest oil buyer in the world. Also, a huge market for consumer items, also a huge market for defense purchases. The world is an open playing field. So that's the importance of the message that the Russian president is sending by taking the plane to New Delhi. For India, as you asked, the strategic autonomy bit. India, after the tariffs imposed by President Trump, is sending a signal that the U.S. cannot arm twist India. India retains its right to engage with the world on its own terms, based on its own interests and needs. Enough of lecturing by the West, their hypocrisy being called out. India retains the right to buy oil, though we've seen dip in oil prices, but that will be under review as to how to round trip the sanctions.
Okay.
So the message that that New Delhi would want to send to the world is that it retains its autonomy, strategic autonomy, to engage with the world based on its own needs, on its own interests. And while India stands for peace and would want the Ukraine conflict to end through dialogue and diplomacy,
Right.
but it will engage with anyone it wishes to engage with.
Definitely. Amrit, you just told us about that the two leaders are expected to discuss the entire gamut of bilateral relations. But the ties between both the countries go beyond diplomacy, Amrit. What's your assessment of that?
If you mean going beyond diplomacy, if you mean that it's not just a give and take transactional
Right.
relationship, you're right, Siddharth. It is not. It is beyond that. Of course, there is an element of transactional relationship. Say, buying the oil. You bought oil because you increased oil supplies because you were getting cheaper oil, and you made no bones about it. India was very clear that it needs to serve the interests and take care of the needs of its 1.4 billion population. So it will do whatever it deems fit and whatever serves its interest.
Definitely. And Amrit, also, can you tell us something about the people-to-people ties between both the countries?
That's what. Yes, I'm coming to that.
Okay.
There is a transactional angle to the relationship, but it's more than that. It is, the people-to-people contacts that you talk about go back to the Soviet era.
Okay.
You wouldn't have been born then, Siddharth.
I'm sure.
When the USSR, the kind of cooperation that existed in films, in cultural contacts, the kind of literature that used to come here. My generation would have read Dostoevsky, Lenin, all kinds of Russian philosophers, and all that was freely available in India. So there is a deep cultural connect between the Indians and the Russians, which transcends time. There is a present connect also. About 80,000 Russians visit India every year. The Indians visiting Russia is less, about 40,000. Goa, as you know, when you go to Goa, the menu card would read in English, would read in Hindi, and it would read in Russian.
Yeah,
in many
definitely.
places, Russian would be more. So that speaks about how people are connected to each other.
Right.
So it is a robust relationship. It's a government-to-government relationship. It is a people-to-people relationship. And of course, as I said, a B2B or a business-to-business relationship. Siddharth?
Definitely, Amrit. A wonderful analysis there. And we'll keep taking updates from you throughout the day since you are covering President Putin's visit thoroughly. Thank you so much. Ahead of President Vladimir Putin's visit, Indian Business Alliance President Sami Manoj Kotwani said the trip is more about shaping the future of friendship between the two nations. He stressed that both nations must move from being buying partners to manufacturing partners.
I think this visit is not about defense
our energy. This visit is more about our friendship. What will be our goal for next 10 to 15 years? It's going to be a very important visit. We are moving forward from buying partners to the manufacturing partners. We need to make everything together, and thinking about that only we can grow, and it's very sound future for all our business people in Russia.
Ahead of Russian President Vladimir Putin's India visit, RT editor and executive producer India Ksenia Kondratieva highlighted the growth and stability in India-Russia ties. She said India-Russia defense ties are shifting from buying to joint production and development, fueled by India's self-reliance and Russia's recognition of its capabilities.
Area of defense where you see there is a progress, and that progress is towards core development, core production. I think it's important for both countries because, of course, Russia is realizing India's potential, India's strive for sovereignty on these matters, and India's strive to be self-reliant and independent. To have its own capabilities, and I think there's a lot of respect in Russia for that kind of strive.
Updates on the Ukraine peace plan now. Even after weeks of intensive diplomacy, the path ahead for it is still unclear. Though US President has termed the talks between Russian President Vladimir Putin and US envoy in Moscow as reasonably good. US envoys Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner briefed Donald Trump and Ukrainian officials after a thorough, productive meeting in Moscow. On the other side, Russian President accepted some US proposals aimed at ending the conflict and was prepared to keep working to find a compromise. Putin termed talks as very useful, constructive and highly substantive. He concluded that compromise option was not found. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov also showed some optimism and disagreed that Putin had rejected the US proposals. A leaked set of 28 US draft peace proposals emerged in November, alarming Ukrainian and European officials who said they bowed to Moscow's main demands. Putin last week said that US and Ukraine had divided up the initial proposals into 4 components. The exact contents have not been disclosed. In the Oval Office, US President said that the Russians very strongly want to make a deal to end the conflict in Ukraine. He said the details of the meeting cannot be revealed as it takes 2 to tango.
I don't know what the Kremlin's doing. I can tell you that they had a reasonably good meeting with President Putin. We're going to find out. It's a war that should have never been started. It's a war, if I were president, we had a rigged election. If I were president, that war would have never happened. It's a terrible thing. But I thought they had a very good meeting yesterday with President Putin. We'll see what happens. He would like to end the war. That was their impression. Now,
in some more meeting ahead, White House officials said Witkoff and Kushner would meet with Ukrainian officials in Miami on Thursday. The negotiations have intensified at a difficult juncture for Kiev, which has been losing ground to Russia on its eastern front while facing its biggest corruption scandal of the conflict. Zelensky's chief of staff, who had led the Ukrainian delegation at peace talks, resigned after anti-corruption investigators searched his home. 2 cabinet ministers have been fired, and a former business partner of Zelensky has been named as a suspect in the crackdown. Moving on now, India is celebrating Navy Day today as the force stands as an equipped, trained and ready to defend the nation's maritime interests, safeguarding the seas that power India's economic rise to a Viksit Samriddha Bharat. The country salutes the courage, discipline and dedication of the past and sailors who have made the Navy a combat-ready, cohesive and Atmanirbhar force. President Draupadi Murmu has extended warm greetings to Indian Navy personnel, veterans and their families on Navy Day. In a social media post, she said, and I quote, The nation salutes the brave men and women who safeguard our maritime borders and national interests with courage, vigilance and unwavering commitment. From securing trade routes and strengthening the blue economy to leading humanitarian missions, the Indian Navy embodies discipline, compassion and responsibility. Vice President C.P. Radhakrishnan too greeted the brave men and women of the Indian Navy. He said, and I quote, "Our Navy stands as a symbol of India's maritime strength, vigilance and commitment to safeguarding our national interests. From securing our vast coastlines to ensuring peace and stability in the Indian Ocean region and beyond, the Indian Navy continues to uphold the highest standards of professionalism, courage and service. I salute all naval personnel, veterans and their families for their selfless service and sacrifices. May you continue to inspire the nation with your valor and commitment." Prime Minister Narendra Modi has extended greeting on Navy Day to all personnel of the Indian Navy. In a social media post, he said, and I quote, "Our Navy is synonymous with exceptional courage and determination. They safeguard our shores and uphold our maritime interests. In the recent years, our Navy has focused on self-reliance and modernization. This has enhanced our security apparatus. I can never forget this year's Diwali, which I spent with naval personnel on board INS Vikrant, wishing the Indian Navy the very best for their endeavours ahead." Defence Minister Rajnath Singh too extended best wishes to all personnel and families of the Indian Navy. He said that as the largest resident naval power in the Indian Ocean, the Navy continues to uphold India's maritime interests with valour, vigilance and commitment to Atmanirbharta and anchors India's journey towards Viksit Bharat. Rajnath Singh added that the high standards of professionalism and commitment showcased by our Navy and our naval personnel over the last year give me immense confidence that the Indian Navy stands ready to safeguard and advance our national maritime interests. The Minister wished the Indian Navy every success in all its endeavours. Parliament is set for a busy day on Thursday with proceedings beginning at 11 a.m. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman set to move the National Security and Health Security Cess Bill 2025 aimed at boosting resources for national security and public health. The bill will augment resources for meeting expenditure on national security and public health by levying a cess on machines installed or processes undertaken for the manufacture or production of specified goods, along with related and incidental provisions. The Finance Minister will move the bill for consideration and passing. India's aviation regulator has launched a probe into IndiGo's severe disruption after days of delays and cancellations blamed on pilot shortages and stricter duty norms. India's Directorate General of Civil Aviation initiated an investigation on Wednesday into the extensive operational breakdown at IndiGo, which saw hundreds of flights disrupted nationwide. The carrier faced more than 200 cancellations in a single day and delays touching 10 hours at major airports, including Delhi, Mumbai, Bengaluru and Hyderabad. In November alone, the airline cancelled 1,232 flights, with almost 62% linked to crew shortages. The situation deepened after stronger fatigue control rules took effect for pilots. Airline Pilots Association of India on Wednesday said the operational disruptions at IndiGo due to crew issues point to a failure of proactive resource planning by dominant airlines. IndiGo has now announced calibrated flight cuts, while DGCA continues oversight to ensure passenger hardship is reduced and service reliability restored. Let's take a look at the key highlights of the revised FDTL regulations. The Directorate General of Civil Aviation has implemented significant changes to flight duty time limitations for pilots, aligning them with global standards. The weekly rest period has been increased from 36 hours to 48 hours to ensure adequate recovery from fatigue. Night duty hours have been expanded to cover the period from midnight to 6 a.m., providing pilots with sufficient rest. Successive night shifts are now limited to a maximum of 8 hours of flight time and 10 hours of flight duty. Additionally, the number of landings per duty has been reduced from 6 under the previous regulations to a maximum of 2. The DGCA has also mandated that airlines submit quarterly confidential, non-punitive fatigue reports detailing the actions taken to manage pilot fatigue. Sri Lankan President Anura Kumara Dissanayake has expressed gratitude to Prime Minister Narendra Modi for India's timely assistance following the devastation caused by Cyclone Ditwa, describing the support as a sign of close and enduring relationship between the two countries. In a social media post, he said, and I quote, "I express my sincere appreciation to Prime Minister Narendra Modi for his message and for India's steadfast support to Sri Lanka following the recent adverse weather. India's prompt assistance under the Sagar Bandhu initiative underscores the depth of our partnership and the enduring goodwill between our nations." President Dissanayike's remarks came as the Indian teams continued relief and rescue efforts on the ground. Another Indian Air Force's C-17 Globemaster aircraft on Wednesday airlifted to Sri Lanka a readily deployable Bailey Bridge, an urgent requirement to restore road connectivity to areas cut off in the wake of severe devastation due to Cyclone Ditwa. This modular bridge can be deployed in hours at locations where existing bridges have been washed off or damaged in the floods, allowing trucks, ambulances and other carrying essential aid to reach. It will help restore road connectivity in areas cut off in the wake of cyclone. The aircraft also brought in 500 water purifiers and 22 personnel, including engineers and doctors, to strengthen the relief efforts. While Indian Air Force's Mi-17 V5 helicopters carried out sustained missions, delivering 9 tons of relief material and rescuing 3 survivors from affected areas. With unwavering commitment, determination and compassion, India's National Disaster Response Force teams continue life-saving operations in Sri Lanka. The teams are on the ground in Badulla, working through a painstaking and complex process to retrieve those buried under landslides. The 4th Kashi Tamil Sangamam, celebrating the timeless civilizational connection between Tamil Nadu and Kashi, that is Varanasi, continues in full swing. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has extended heartfelt invitation to all to attend the Sangamam. Under the inspiring theme, Tamil Karkalam, he reminded everyone that learning languages, meeting people and embracing shared heritage strengthens the spirit of Ek Bharat, Shresth Bharat, or One India, Great India. On Wednesday, the chants of Har Har Mahadev echoed through the sacred corridors of Kashi Vishwanath, remembering the revered Hindu deity Lord Shiv. Students from Tamil Nadu joined in one powerful chant, "One place, one voice, one spirit." The air came alive with their shared devotion, reflecting the enduring bond that unites Tamil Nadu and Kashi. Kashi Tamil Sangamam 4.0 is a confluence where the world's oldest living language meets one of the world's most ancient cities. World marks the International Cheetah Day today to raise awareness about the dwindling populations and shrinking habitats of the fastest land animal on earth. Prime Minister has extended best wishes to all wildlife lovers and conservationists dedicated to protecting the cheetah. 3 years ago, Indian government launched Project Cheetah with the aim of safeguarding this magnificent animal and restoring the ecosystem in which it can truly flourish. It was also an effort to revive lost ecological heritage and strengthen our biodiversity. Today, India is proud to be home to several cheetahs, and a significant number of them are born on Indian soil. Prime Minister Narendra Modi said that many of them now thrive in the Kuno National Park and the Gandhi Sagar Sanctuary, both in Madhya Pradesh. PM Modi said that it is heartening to see cheetah tourism growing in popularity as well. He said the cheetah conservation has been possible only through the collective support of our people, especially our dedicated cheetah mitras. He encouraged more wildlife enthusiasts from across the world to visit India and witness the cheetah in all its splendor. Protecting wildlife and living in harmony with nature are integral to India's civilizational ethos, and we see that spirit alive today in these efforts. And still to come on DD India News Hour. US launches New Orleans immigration raids as Trump administration pauses green card processing for nationals from 19 restricted countries. Honduras suspends vote count again as Nasrallah clings to razor-thin lead over Trump-backed Asfura. Australia will impose social media ban come December 10. We will tell you more about it. Stay tuned.
geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the economic brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Siddharth Bharadwaj and a quick recap of the headlines. India will host Russian President Vladimir Putin for bilateral summit with Prime Minister Narendra Modi, set to strengthen the special and privileged strategic partnership. Hectic diplomacy continues over Ukraine peace plan. Trump envoy to meet Ukraine negotiator in Miami. Kremlin says work on Ukraine proposals going on. US military activity surges in Puerto Rico even as Venezuelan President Maduro confirms call with Trump, terms the talks respectful and cordial. And in the second ODI, Virat Kohli and Ruturaj Gaikwad's stunt failed to deter South Africa as Proteas successfully chased record total of 358 runs to level 3-match series 1-1. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro on Wednesday confirmed he held a respectful and cordial phone call with US President Donald Trump about 10 days ago, framing the conversation as a potential opening for diplomacy.
I received a phone call and spoke with President Donald Trump. I can say that the conversation was in a respectful tone, and I can even say it was cordial between the US President and the President of Venezuela. I add that if this call means there are steps towards a respectful dialogue between states, between countries, then welcome dialogue, welcome diplomacy, because we will always seek peace. Welcome diplomats, welcome peace. Peace yes, war never, never in the like.
According to the reports, Maduro told Trump he was willing to leave Venezuela if he and his family received full legal amnesty, including the removal of US sanctions and the end of a flagship case before the International Criminal Court. Maduro also said that steps were being taken toward a respectful dialogue between the two countries. The call follows months of US pressure on Venezuela, including strikes against alleged drug smuggling boats, threats of military action, and the designation of Cartel de los Soles as a foreign terrorist group. Meanwhile, the US military is ramping up its presence in Puerto Rico, deploying Osprey aircraft, naval ships and additional personnel as Washington intensifies pressure on Venezuela. The US is also conducting joint training exercises in Panama as President Donald Trump expands his military presence in the Caribbean amid rising tensions with Venezuela. On Tuesday, 25 Panamanian personnel and 25 US Marines gathered in the jungle to practice air ambulance drills, simulating the extraction of injured people. Over the past 3 months, US troops have carried out at least 21 strikes on alleged drug boats in the Caribbean and Pacific. Some US lawmakers, international organizations and human rights experts have questioned the legality of the attacks, although the Trump administration maintains it has been operating within US and international law. More than 300 Venezuelan citizens returned home on Wednesday as part of government's ongoing repatriation program for migrants, many of whom had attempted to reach, in fact, the United States through Mexico. Venezuelan Foreign Minister Ivan Gil said the flight, which arrived at Simon Bolivar International Airport, brought in 304 passengers, among them more than 140 children. Another plane carrying Venezuelan migrants from the United States was reported to have landed in the country on Wednesday. According to the Transportation Ministry, the Eastern Airlines flight from Phoenix was authorized to land at Maiquetía, near Caracas, after a short suspension of bilateral flights triggered by rising tensions between the two nations. Video and photographs of Little St. James, the private island owned by the late financier and convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, were released by Democrats of the House Oversight Committee. Last week, President Donald Trump signed legislation ordering the Justice Department to release documents from its long-running investigation into Jeffrey Epstein. The files were eagerly sought by both his political opponents and members of his own base who have pressed for greater transparency in the case. The material could shed more light on the activities of Epstein, who socialized with Trump and other notable figures before his 2008 conviction on charges of soliciting a minor for prostitution. U.S. immigration authorities have launched an operation in New Orleans to arrest immigrants living in the country without legal status as part of President Donald Trump's ongoing immigration crackdown. The Trump administration is pausing all immigration applications, such as requests for green cards for people from 19 countries banned from travel earlier this year as part of sweeping immigration changes in the wake of the shooting of 2 National Guard troops. The changes were outlined in policy memo posted Tuesday on the website of U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. The ban applied to citizens of Afghanistan, Myanmar, Chad, the Republic of Congo, Equatorial Guinea, Eritrea, Haiti, Iran, Libya, Somalia, Sudan and Yemen, while the restricted access applied to people from Burundi, Cuba, Laos, Sierra Leone, Togo, Turkmenistan and Venezuela. The administration in June banned travel to the U.S. by citizens of 12 countries and restricted access for those from 7 others, citing national security concern. U.S. President Donald Trump called Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey a fool over his support for the country's largest Somali community. Trump also said U.S. Congresswoman Ilhan Omar shouldn't be allowed to be a congresswoman, adding that she should be thrown the hell out of our country. The comments made during a cabinet meeting on Tuesday, Trump described Somalis as garbage and said, "We don't want them in our country," remarks that Somalis said insulted both their people and their homeland.
They talk about our country. We want them to pray for our country. This is not the people living in Minnesota. And she's a disaster. She should not be, and her friends shouldn't be allowed. Frankly, they shouldn't even be allowed to be congresspeople, okay? They shouldn't even be allowed to be congresspeople because they don't represent the interests of our country.
Omar on Wednesday denounced Trump's latest remarks about Somalis as bigoted, xenophobic, Islamophobic, and said his obsession with her and the Somali community was creepy. Omar, who represents Minnesota's 5th district, said his rhetoric was not surprising. The Trump administration has ordered increased vetting of applicants for H-1B visas for highly skilled workers, with anyone involved in censorship of free speech considered for rejection. The State Department cable sent to all U.S. missions on December 2nd orders U.S. consular officers to review resumes or LinkedIn profiles of H-1B applicants and family members who would be traveling with them to see if they have worked in areas that include activities such as misinformation, disinformation, content moderation, fact-checking, compliance and online safety, among others. The new vetting requirements apply to both new and repeat applicants. The Trump administration has already significantly tightened its vetting of applicants for student visas, ordering U.S. consular officers to screen for any social media posts that may be hostile towards the United States. As part of his wide-ranging crackdown on immigration, Trump in September imposed new fees on H-1B visas. And now Honduras again halted the publication of official results in its presidential election as centrist Salvador Nasrallah maintained a narrow lead ahead of Trump-backed conservative Nasri Asfura. With 79.6% of votes counted, the Liberal Party's Nasrallah held 40.27% of support, less than 16,000 votes ahead of the National Party's Asfura with 39.64%. Rixi Moncada of the ruling leftist Libre Party was well behind in 3rd place with 19.01%. The tightly contested race has been marred by system delays and allegations of fraud, as well as the intervention from U.S. President Trump, who strongly backed Asfura and alleged there had been fraud without providing evidence. Former Honduran President Juan Orlando Hernandez thanked Donald Trump for pardoning him from a 45-year prison sentence for drug trafficking, saying the U.S. president changed my life. Hernandez was granted a surprise pardon as part of Trump's push for Nasser Asfara, candidate of the former president's party, to win Honduras's presidential election held on Sunday. In Hong Kong, residents forced to flee the only block of the 8 not engulfed in flames a week ago returned briefly to their homes to retrieve belongings, even as authorities continue their search for remains in the burnout apartment complex. Some 30 people are still missing, with the death toll hitting 159 on Wednesday, including an infant and a 97-year-old. Hundreds of victims continue to be housed in temporary accommodation, struggling to rebuild their lives. Police have arrested 21 suspects for manslaughter in a probe into the cause of the fire, while Hong Kong's anti-corruption body is also investigating possible graft. All residents of the Wang Kok Court complex, numbering over 4,000, were displaced by the city's worst blaze in decades. As Australia is all set to roll out one of the toughest social media age rules in the world in a first-of-its-kind legislation from December 10, anyone under 16 in Australia will be blocked from creating or using accounts on major social platforms. That includes Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat and YouTube. Facebook and Instagram began shutting down 500,000 accounts of users under 16 years old on Thursday. Meta also started blocking the creation of new accounts for under 16 users in Australia. Hundreds of thousands of adolescents are expected to be impacted by the ban. Dhaka woke up to mild tremors early this morning as an earthquake struck the capital and surrounding areas around 6:15 a.m. According to India's National Centre for Seismology, the quake measured 4.1 on the Richter scale, with its epicenter located in Narsingdi, near Dhaka. There was no immediate reports of casualties or damage due to the relatively shallow depth. The tremor was felt lightly across nearby districts, briefly rattling households and waking up residents in parts of the capital. Experts have repeatedly warned that Bangladesh remains highly vulnerable to major earthquakes as it lies along 3 active tectonic plate fault lines. Let's take a look at other stories making news around the world. The Jonas brothers Kevin, Joe and Nick have officially been immortalized in Hollywood with a handprint and footprint ceremony at the TCL Chinese Theatre. The pop trio, who shot to fame in 2007, were celebrated for their impact on music and entertainment. After a split in 2013, the brothers reunited in 2019 and continue to perform together, marking a full circle moment with this iconic honor. Abu Dhabi has opened the Zayed National Museum, a landmark space celebrating the UAE's journey from ancient roots to its modern rise. The museum features 4 main exhibits that highlight the nation's history, culture and achievements. Designed by British architect Norman Foster, the building stands on Saadiyat Island's cultural district, adding a major attraction to the capital's growing heritage landscape. A newly hatched macaroni penguin chick made its first public appearance at Galveston Aquarium, United States, delighting visitors on Wednesday. Macaroni penguins usually live in subantarctic and Antarctic regions and are listed as vulnerable on the International Union for conservation of Nature Red List due to climate change, shrinking food sources, pollution and predators. The arrival of the chick raises the aquarium's penguin count to 108, offering a hopeful boost for the species. And still to come on DD News. Trump administration moves to roll back Biden-era fuel economy standards, citing EV concerns. Team India unveils new T20 World Cup 2026 jersey during ODI break in Raipur. And Italian Alps town puts on a very beautiful winter light show as festive season kicks off. You're watching DD News Hour. I'm Siddharth Bharadwaj, and US markets closed higher on Wednesday as fresh economic data reinforced expectations of a Fed rate cut next week. A prolonged government shutdown had delayed key indicators, but the backlog is now being cleared. The new ISM numbers showed US services actively holding steady while input prices eased slightly but stayed elevated. Investors are now awaiting the delayed personal consumption expenditures inflation report, the Fed's preferred gauge, due Friday. Private payrolls unexpectedly fell in November, shifting focus to private sector data in the absence of official jobs numbers. The Dow jumped 408 points, while S&P 500 and Nasdaq also ended the day in positive territory. US President Donald Trump on Wednesday proposed slashing fuel economy standards that former President Joe Biden had finalized last year. Trump said the move was about reversing Biden's efforts to force more Americans to buy electric vehicles. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration proposed significantly reducing the fuel economy requirements from model years 2022 to 2031. The department is proposing to revise down the 2022 fuel economy standards and then proposing to hike them between 0.25% and 0.5% annually through 2031. In 2022, under Biden, the department increased fuel efficiency by 8% annually for model years 2024-25 and 10% for 2026. The department also said that increase in vehicle emissions from its proposal in 2035 would be the equivalent of annual emissions from 7.7 million vehicles over the Biden proposal. Earlier this year, Trump signed legislation that ended fuel economy penalties for automakers, and also the department said they faced no fines dating back to the 2022 model year. You're watching DD India News. Our time now for some sports news. And after a dominant batting display by India setting a massive target of 359, the Proteas have responded in commanding fashion. India piled up 358 for 5, driven by Ruturaj Gaikwad's maiden ODI century and Virat Kohli's 53rd ton. KL Rahul added an unbeaten 66 to round off the innings. In reply, South Africa lost Quinton de Kock early, but Temba Bavuma and Aiden Markram steadied the chase. Markram's 9th ODI century anchored the innings, while Matthew Britske's fluent 68 and Dewald Brevis' half-century provided vital support. In the death overs, Corbin Bosch and Keshav Maharaj produced crucial cameos to seal the chase. The Proteas triumphed by 6 wickets, levelling the series 1-1. All right, and DD India's Narayan Singh joins us live on this. Hi Narayan, a very good morning to you. Everyone was shocked, Narayan, yesterday when the result came out. You know, when you compare it with the first match, where India displayed a phenomenal cricket in all the departments, be it batting, bowling, fielding, and then you come to the second encounter. They have set such a massive score. And everyone was thinking at a point in time that India will clinch this one, and with this match, India will clinch the series as well. But the tables got turned. What went wrong? What's your analysis, Narayan?
Siddharth, very good morning. If you take a look in the first match too, it was a high-scoring thriller, and that match was, we earlier also discussed that it was the highest aggregate run score between India and South Africa in that match, and it has turned another thriller. We can say that after scoring 358, it was very difficult for any team to lose the match. But we know the conditions was not up to the mark. We know that there was a dew, and India, again, the toss was not in the favor of the India. India losing the toss for the consecutive 20th time.
Yes.
Any team who had won the toss would have batted, would have bowled first, because we know that in the evening conditions, when dew comes, the ball gets wet and it's difficult to bowl with a wet ball. That was a factor that was against the team India. And we know that it was in first match too also, it was nightmarish for the Indian bowlers to bowl with that thing. But towards the end, they managed to few crucial wickets. But here, we know that again, that dewish problem. And we can say that when dew is a factor now, even you score 360, 370, the score is not dew proof. That's the fact with that match. And along with that, we can also say that in the middle overs, especially, our bowlers are not bowling at the right areas. If we talk about the South African, they did exactly that thing. They were bowling at the right areas. If you bowl at the right areas with the proper line and length, definitely it helps you to contain the opponents. And that exactly didn't happen with the India. And the most importantly, we can say that we don't have an experienced frontline pacer in this here for India. Prasidh Krishna was there. He was too expensive. If you take a look, his economy is more than 10, and Harshit Rana too, also above 7. So in missing the senior pros like Jasprit Bumrah, even we can say that the selectors should focus on selecting the player like Mohammad Shami too, who is a veteran of the game. We know that what kind of impact he can bring in the game. Also, we take a look, Siraj is also not there. All the three frontline pacers were not there. In the absence of those pacers, definitely we can say that the new generation or the rookie pacers were not able to deliver in the conditions, and you have to understand the match condition too. So that was lacking in our pace department, especially if any of the three senior pacers, whether it is Siraj, whether it is Bumrah, whether it is Shami, would have been, the story would have been different. So that was the key difference between the two sides, and missing the catches is the big factor. The way Yashasvi Jaiswal missing the catch of the Markram in his 50s, and he went on to score a massive 100. That the match-winning knock that trumped the hundreds from the Rituraj Gaikwad and the Virat Kohli. So that was the key difference, I think. So if that would have been a story, definitely India would have an upper hand and would have clinched the series yesterday only.
Very quickly, Narayan, but one thing, what we can see from here is Kohli's form. Everyone is really excited. But let's hope, one game remaining, let's hope that India come out with flying colours and they work on their weaknesses, which they displayed in the second ODI against South Africa. Let's hope they work on their weaknesses, and let's hope team management also should work, constructively, in tandem with the players and the captain as well. We leave it there, Narayan. Thank you so much. Team India unveiled their new jersey for the T20 World Cup 2026 during the innings break of the second ODI against South Africa in Raipur. Former captain Rohit Sharma, the tournament's brand ambassador, and young batter Tilak Verma revealed the fresh design. The World Cup, co-hosted by India and Sri Lanka, begins on February 7 with the final on March 8. Surya Kumar Yadav's side will open their campaign against the USA in Mumbai, aiming to make a strong statement in front of home fans. A spellbinding light show remains talk of the Italian town of Brixen, marked the 10th anniversary of its winter light shows. The 20-minute show follows the journey of the little creature Oops, navigating the city before finding its home. The production aimed to target children and families, integrating projection mapping, music and storytelling in the renowned venue. We hope you enjoyed these visuals. That's all for this edition of DD India News Hour. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app. The app is available on Android and iOS platforms, and you can scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Prasar Bharati from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour.